The year is 1996, and Japanese author Koushun Takami is in his room writing his first novel. At the time, he didn't know that he was about to give birth to one of the biggest gaming genres of our time, the Battle Royale. Battle Royale started as a novel, then adapted into a manga shortly after. The concept is simple. A bunch of kids are left alone on an island, and only one can come out alive. It was a massive cultural phenomenon back then, which inspired many works, such as the immensely popular movie series Hunger Games, the Netflix show Squid Game, and a small indie game you might know as Fortnite. But the Battle Royale genre didn't catch on immediately in the gaming world. It actually took some time before its popularity grew. Before we deep dive into the sad story of Shadow Arena, let me tell you another sad story. Not protecting your online activity with a VPN whilst browsing the internet from unsecured Wi-Fi and having some nerd steal your personal information? Yes, it happens, but thanks to NordVPN, it doesn't have to happen to you. NordVPN is the king of the VPN providers, and it's been trusted by millions around the world for over 10 years. If you're someone that often uses public Wi-Fi or don't want your internet service provider seeing everything you've been searching for, then you need to use a VPN. Other than security, NordVPN is fantastic for bypassing government censorship, expanding your Netflix library by connecting to different regions, and of course, as a gamer, getting past those pesky region blocks whenever there's a hot new Korean MMORPG on the horizon. On top of all that, NordVPN also has a malware blocker inside the application and includes NordPass, which allows you to create and store strong passwords, and NordLocker, where you can save your files in an encrypted cloud. Click my link in the description below to get NordVPN now completely risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's nordvpn.com/lazypeon. Download now. Tackling a game with so many players all fighting each other for resources was a massive task back then, and there was no way of knowing if people were willing to play such a game. In 2009 though, game developer Dean Hall released a mod for the game Arma 2 called DayZ, where players are placed in a fictional post-Soviet state in which the population has turned into violent zombies. The players are the survivors, they have limited resources and have to scavenge the world for supplies such as food, water, weapons and medicine, all whilst killing or cooperating with each other. The mod was wildly popular, but Bohemia Interactive, the studio behind it, went through development hell trying to release DayZ as a full standalone game. This gave other game developers the time to ride the wave of DayZ's success and release their own twist on the genre, and that's how PUBG came to life. If you were there during PUBG's peak, then you'd know how insanely popular the game was, but if you weren't, here are some numbers to put things into perspective for you. At the end of 2021, it's the best-selling video game on PC and Xbox, and the 5th best-selling video game of all time. Even more successful is PUBG's global mobile version, which has accumulated more than 8 billion downloads and grossed over $8 billion on mobile devices, making it the 4th highest grossing mobile game ever. Not only that, but years after its peak, PUBG is still the 3rd most played game on Steam with 300k concurrent players, and it still holds the ridiculous record of all-time peak players of 3.2 million, 3 times higher than games like CSGO and Dota 2. Everyone was playing PUBG, all the streamers, all the pro players, even your grandma was playing it. The gaming scene is usually affected by trends, and this was the Battle Royale era. Big gaming companies then started to release their own Battle Royale games such as Call of Duty Warzone, Apex Legends, Fortnite, and the rest is history. Like all gaming trends, even the small fishes wanted a piece of the pie. Battle Royale games at this point were mostly shooters, but this wasn't the only type of game that could be adapted to the Battle Royale setting, and here is where we saw the rise of the action RPG Battle Royales, many of which I've covered on this channel, such as Spellbreak, Naraka Blade Point, Ashes of Creation Apocalypse. Actually, let's not talk about that one. Battle Royale works surprisingly well with RPG elements, and this brings us to the topic topic of today's video. PEARE, developer of Black Desert Online, started work on Shadow Arena, a 3-man Battle Royale mode within their game, which allowed players to queue up either alone or with 2 friends, and fight until they were the last man standing. You would spawn in spirit form, be launched away from the centre of the map, and would have to look around to pick your class. Once you've managed to find the class you wanted, killing monsters and looting boxes would give you new abilities and better gear. As time progressed, the map would become smaller and smaller, forcing players into a face-off at the end of the match. Fairly standard Battle Royale stuff with a bit of Black Desert's flavour. This was quite a big surprise at the time for 2 reasons. First of all, this was the first time in Black Desert Online where you could just queue up with your friends to PvP together whenever you wanted. And second, the mode also gave really good rewards to the players participating, but was not heavily monetized like other aspects of the game, which if you played Black Desert, you know PEARE would try to rob you at gunpoint at any inch of progression. All you needed was the Camasylvia Blessing, a monthly buff that would cost €15 to receive more rewards for participating in the arena. This buff also gave other benefits outside of the mode, so all in all it wasn't a bad deal, for BDO standards that is. But players received Shadow Arena with mostly positive feedback and general praise, as it allowed everyone to participate in instant action combat and PvP, which are some of the strongest aspects of the game, without requiring months and months of heavy PvE progression or pay to win. Like all good things, it wasn't meant to last. Black Desert is a Korean MMO after all, and like many Korean games, it suffers from very specific issues in regards to being easily hackable once published in the West. At the peak of Shadow Arena's popularity, Black Desert was running a promotion and the game was free to purchase. The lack of measures against hackers, coupled with the really good rewards for winning, completely killed the mode. It wasn't uncommon to encounter a speed hacker every other game you did. So what did PEARE do to face this issue? Well, if you're a normal person, you'd think that they'd just punish the people abusing the hacks to get rewards, increase the requirements for entering the arena so that people couldn't just create an account and use it as a speed hack throwaway, or simply find a way to fix the issue. But by thinking that, you'd be wrong. They just closed Shadow Arena permanently. There was obviously a massive uproar from the community at the time because the decision didn't make any sense. Why would you remove one of the most popular modes from the game? Black Desert at the time was experiencing a decline in player base caused by the complete rework of the combat system and the addition of Renown score, but Shadow Arena brought back many of the players that quit the game at the time. What we didn't know was that PEARE had a plan, and they were preparing something. After 1 year of silence, PEARE announces their new standalone game. Yep, you guessed it right, Shadow Arena. Maybe it was a move made out of confidence, maybe hope, maybe greed or even arrogance, but PEARE decided to release Shadow Arena using the same engine they used for Black Desert Online, with a few differences here and there in the graphics and gameplay. The game looked and played exactly the same way it did before. If Shadow Arena was a massive success before as a game mode within a game, then it'd surely be a massive success as a standalone product, right? PEARE ran a sponsored streamer tournament and paid some content creators to play the game at release, and the game launched to a whopping player base of 5,000. Not only did the game peak on its first month, but it also died instantly, with a brutal 80% player base drop right out of the gate, month after month losing more and more players. Shadow Arena died so fast, you'd think it was released by Amazon Game Studios. So what caused Shadow Arena to die so quickly when it was popular during its Black Desert Online days? What happened? Well, the reasons are many. The biggest one is probably PEARE being out of touch with Shadow Arena and its player base to begin with. Shadow Arena was loved because it provided a break during the mindless hours of grinding in Black Desert Online, where you could still progress your character and PvP without having to worry about fighting whales that overpowered you with their massive credit cards, or you could just hang out in Discord and queue some games with your guildmates. People loved Black Desert's combat because of its fluidity and depth. In order to create some sort of balance in Shadow Arena, you were only allowed to have a few abilities. This made the gameplay a lot more streamlined and simple, which is fine for a side mode, but it can get boring really fast for a standalone game. Who was the target audience for Shadow Arena? Black Desert players, and whilst many BDO players enjoyed the standalone game, they ended up not playing it after a few days because not only was there no progression for their MMO characters anymore, but you couldn't even keep the two games open at the same time due to using the same anti-cheat program. If you ever played BDO, you know just how big AFK activities are in the game. You always want to have the game open in the background doing something. So now, BDO players, the main audience for Shadow Arena, were not only not getting rewarded anymore for playing this spin-off game, but they were actively losing progress in Black Desert for playing Shadow Arena. You'd think one of the main advantages of creating a standalone game would be having more control over the hacking and botting problem, and other various optimization issues that come when you make a big MMORPG with no instances, right? Wrong. Standalone Shadow Arena was still plagued by people speed hacking and ruining the game for everyone else, with the addition of the same desync issues and poor optimization that was present in BDO. Unsurprisingly, the game died a few months after its release, even though Pearl Abyss was still releasing new content for it pretty frequently. It's hard to say if they were doing it to justify something to all the investors, or because they really believed in the project, but the game never managed to recover, and after 3 years of the game still being labelled Early Access on Steam, PA announced the termination of services, citing, "Despite our efforts to introduce various elements to the game, we thought that Shadow Arena in its current state was inadequate in offering a unique experience. With deep consideration, we regret to inform you that the service of Shadow Arena will be terminated." Battle Royale novels often included many criticisms towards capitalism, which adds a bit of irony to the tragic demise of Shadow Arena, a project born from greed that never managed to realise its full potential, a game that will be missed by some and unheard of for many. But that's it for this video. Let me know your thoughts on Shadow Arena if you had the chance to play the game before it got axed. Social media on screen, throw your V-Bucks at the like button for the algorithm gods, and I'll see you in the next one.